Pints in a Corner is a music history podcast about the Channel Club in Boston, Mass. Dinky Dawson and Tony Raine are your hosts. They interview channel performers and workers, bringing out stories and memories of the great music and events that came through this iconic South Boston venue.
Hello.
Scott, is this you?
It is me, live in the flesh.
Hello, Scott. This is Dinky calling you.
Of course it is.
We'll start it with this one. I'm going to just start it off going, welcome to 2 Pints in a Corner with Tony Raine and Dinky Dawson, Scott Pearlman, sound man, production manager, and all that stuff from the channel days. And welcome there, Scott.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to be here.
That's cool.
Very good to be here.
It's cool. So let's start off with some nice, interesting stuff like, do you remember the first experience that you had with the channel?
Oh, boy.
In other words, coming in with a band and playing, because I met you after you'd been in there with this band or two, and I believe that what we did is, I said, this man knows what he's doing. Let's see if we can go and see if he's interested. And yes, you were interested in working there, you know?
I think that, when you, back then, there were a lot of clubs, obviously, but the status of going walk into the channel to mix and hearing, seeing all the bands there and the PA at the time and just everything going there is definitely just a wild experience, and all you want to do is you just want to soak it in, just like the gigs you go out on the road these days.
Yeah, you did soak it in. There's no ifs and buts, because you were doing also not just the bigger bands that you were working with. You were also doing like the new music nights, looking after 5 and 6 bands a night. And not only that, you learned how to do all that on stage, and now 10 times over these years, you've become a master at it. So.
Yeah, I have to say that it was because of that, over the years, at festivals and all that, because of my experience at New Music Night, it got me real good at that, just because of having to, wire it up, do a quick little sound check, get them off the stage, do another one, and rinse and repeat. I don't know, was it 6 or 7 bands? I don't even know.
I tell you.
But it was definitely it was a really good experience, for an engineer to know how to do that. And it was really a great experience to be able to just learn how to mix on the fly. That was actually kind of one of the bigger things too. Yeah,
but it was worth it, because look how much you're still doing it. You're still loving this, and I'm sure you've retired a little bit here because of, like me, with all the illnesses you get.
Yeah. Well, the illnesses caught me by surprise, and my body has become a playground lately.
Yeah,
but
yeah, and you've got grandkids, and that makes it.
Oh yeah, I I don't do it as I'm not out as long anymore. I don't think anybody really is. I mean, and also after, I can safely say, from day one in the channel to now is almost 38 years in this business.
Yeah.
That touring all over the world and all that. And, it's kind of funny, because a lot of the bands that I worked with when they came through the channel.
That's what I was going to ask. That was the question I was going to ask. Did you hook up with those people when you were in Nashville? And, well, we are. That's where you live.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. A lot of the classic rock bands that came through there, like Foghat was the first tour I ever did in my life, and they played there. And Molly Hatchet, I was on the road with. The Outlaws, I was on the road with. Marshall Tucker. All those guys that came through the doors there, and various people that, are not still alive, but we had all the classic people well, it was amazing, and you see the people still that all know the channel, and they all say, "I wonder how Dinky's doing." I know he's doing just fine, and
Yeah.
so it's a very lasting thing because all those bands that have been around for a while know the channel and the circuit that they were on.
Yeah, that was right. It was that particular circuit. Even for the bands that had been, top line and whatever, they were coming through. After all these years of being in the big time and whatever, they were coming down on this circuit. Even though it was a decent sized room, it was an amazing amount of people that we had that came through there 7 days a week. And,
I mean, I can't get over the names that you think about that have been there and back again. That I had a part of, and that I'd go in to see or see you. With your friends that came, from Fleetwood Mac or the Stones or anybody that you had done work with, that would come in and visit. That was like, the place. Or the time that you two came in there. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember quite a few, but you got some good stories, I'm sure, that you had to deal with and stuff, and different scenarios with people. I mean.
Oh yeah. Well, you get. That's the other thing about the experience of being at the channel is you get used to, talking to bands one on one and being a house guy. It was a better feeling back then, I think, because you go out to the gigs now, the house guys aren't quite the same.
No,
but
they've changed. Everything has changed.
Yeah, everything has changed, and we cared a lot at the channel.
Yes.
Between DB and all the people that were there.
Exactly. Everyone, even people coming in like Jeff Morley, who I'm going to talk with next week, people like that came in with their sound systems because they were coming in with other groups that were local that had also got higher in their charts or wherever they were, so they could afford an extra sound system and this, that, and the other, and the one that they travel with. So rather than not use that was a challenge coming in with all that stuff in front of the sound system that we got in there.
Oh, it was a big one because you remember Clare Brothers. And whoever else would come in there and Scorpio and bring another console and put it in front of ours.
Yeah, and it was
and yeah,
too
it
much.
There was a lot of stuff when because you don't do that now. You never did.
No, most of the clubs don't let you do that, and because we've got this new digital board. I'm sorry, I cannot stand to go and work on digital boards. As much as the convenience, they don't have the flavor of anything to do with analog. Humans don't hear digital anyway; we hear analog, and that's the bottom line. But we're doing that analog stuff in there, the old PM 1000, then the 2000 and stuff like that. I never brought the ones of my stuff that I'd already built. That would have freaked the people out. Just like, well, you know what the monitor board was like.
Well, I mean, but if the great thing about the monitor board was that it was built, but it worked, and it just I'll never forget. Sebastian Bach and Skid Row came to the channel after they were on tour with Bon Jovi. Their first show back was at the channel. And they had said the night before that he kicked over the monitor board at another house gig. And I went up to Sebastian then, and I said, "Look, we're not Clare Brothers. We're not an arena. Don't kick our console. We'll do the best we can for you." And I didn't have a word with him. He was fine. And ironically, over the years, I've had a lot of dealing with Baz.
That's cool. That is cool because you learn the whole way to do that stuff.
Yeah.
And rather than, get mad with them and this, that, and the other and whatever, you work with them and say, okay, now how can I help you do this better? Or does it need a bit of this? Does it need a bit of that? What is it?
Right. I just, he was just, I don't think the same people said it the same way. And I think they were trying to be something. We know when a band came in of any stature or anybody that came off tour, the channel was known to, to give them, as best of a stage as they could.
Yeah.
Which is a good stage, a decent light show, fill it up with people and treat them with respect as long as, they didn't come back and, and try to, like I said, kick over a console
or set fire to cymbals like Gibby at the what is it? The Butthole Surfers.
Oh yeah, or Black Flag.
Oh yeah,
the stand. Yeah, they were having, or geez, so many bands that, like Man of War, who almost completely blew up the PA. I think he did because it was the loudest band in the world. I
remember it was about 138 at the back, which is airplane stuff, But the thing was, they didn't really do that much of damage. The only people that did damage is a few people that did it on the monitors itself, and what have you.
Right.
The house would keep doing it to either set fire to an amplifier, and then that section was out, and you fixed it the next day and it worked.
Right.
Right. That kind of stuff. Yeah. But the bottom line of it is we were functional. We were functional the whole time, and we could make it sound very loud if necessary. And they loved it. People loved it.
And the bigger the bands, the more people in that club helped. Soak it up, and it made it sound so sweet.
Oh, I mean, that's the beauty of it. When you get 1,500-1,600 people plus in there, it soaks up everything. So every note you can hear, the whole vocals can be heard properly. Everything, just soaks into it, right? Instead of trying to go through Echo Place or something like that,
Right. Yeah, it wasn't. It was meant for that, to have that many people. And I remember, it was, because, I remember when the Black Crowes and Georgia Satellites came in.
Yeah,
they were both touring together, at that time, and that was the time that the Black Crowes bus caught on fire.
Oh,
out in the parking lot, I think their AC unit caught on fire.
Oh my gosh!
And I don't even know why, but they all, Black Crowes was a great band back in 86, and they're still out today. And I toured with the Satellites a bunch, late 90s with a lot of the bands. So they, when it was sold out, and both those guys had enormous hits.
Yeah.
It was absolutely a great night of rock, is what it was. I mean, Tesla recorded their stuff there, when they were an acoustic band. That was the first time it was unplugged. It was like the first time there was an unplugged concert, around, and they only did a couple shows, and one was a channel. They're still out today. And I also I have done work with them too, a lot. They remember the channel. There's a lot of people. No, there's all those bands have been out and they come through in one form or another. All know the channel. It's just the way it is. It's back then you had Hammerjacks, you had a couple of bigger rooms, but the channel, the way it was and where it was, and all the memories that people had that came through there.
It was the biggest room in town at that point, because you were, other than going to the Bradford Ballroom and places like that, and then because you got the good stuff at the the Tea Party stuff. Ransdown Street. It wasn't fantastic. It was when it was a tea party, but then it changed and made it into a disco more than anything, and then then what they did is put the stage in so they could get more, and then they tried with Mama's Kins. But people only wanted to come to a venue like the Channel, like That's why the Paradise is what it's going. I put the sound system in that in 1977, and
Right.
it's been going since. They've changed it around and done this, that, and the other. But it's the Sam Dane place with the same pole in the middle of the stage, but it's just looks like the Channel now because it's all got that cardboard, not cardboard, plywood and all that stuff and whatever, and it just looks, as though it's been ransacked like the Channel days when everybody.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Well, and also there was no such thing as arrays back there.
No.
You did it in a way that was a kind of like an array at the Paradise, but it wasn't. It was a point source, so it's what made the Paradise kind of easier, but not easier to mix in because of the way you're up in that.
Up in that booth. Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I thought the same thing. It was just it's just that they had it and that wanted it up there, but I had that board built for Don, and it was the biggest tangent that it built, and it worked. I mean, it worked until all the new era came through, and now you've got the little boards. We're doing the same stuff with gates and with compressors and everything. It's all well and good, but at ones and zeros, it doesn't feel good. When you want to turn that one volume up a bit more, you feel it. But with the ones and zeros, it goes and that's the end of your sound, the blub blub sound,
Yeah, I had to adapt because you can't unfortunately take an XL4 on the road a lot anymore anything.
But this is the thing, Scott. What I'm seeing is people are. A lot of those southern bands you're talking about, they want to go out with the analog. Neil Young just bought another sound system for his monitors, which is all set from 1975. It's all analog.
Right.
Because,
there's definitely coming back. Yeah.
Because it should never have gone away in the first place. The largest sale that's going on right now is records. What's with the deal with records? Well, it's the dynamics. People are loving the dynamics. Whereas you get into the digital, we're working on a computer dynamic, which is nothing.
Right.
It's ones and zeros. Doesn't have the bending. It doesn't have all the thing. You can adapt it, of course. You can make this, that, and other, make stuff work functional easier than doing the Channel. You got 10 bands. You can do 10 different scenes on your board. And that's, you don't have to change anything. You just press a button and it goes, after sound check. You've got all the settings.
Well, that was... then you had a little sheet you could mark your settings if you had to and all that, but it was always easy.
It's easy. Just use your earring. You don't use your earring anymore. Come on, Scott. There's nobody that I know of other than you and engineers like you use their hearing, because engineers are not there for hearing anymore. They're technical. They use their iPad. They use everything on the iPad. They use everything to sit up there, and they use the ones and zeros. They don't even listen to the music because it's all preset. A lot of the engineers are walking around with just flash drives. So they put the flash drive in, and it affects the sound, the lights, and the drums and everybody on stage with the click track so that they can play to it. And it's disgusting because it's not live, but you're working with bands that will never do that because of the liveness of their particular creation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the thing about it, was there was a guy, from years being out there, this guy, Robert Scoble, who's been out there forever.
Yeah.
And he mixes Kenny Chesney now on a big desk, but, it just has to be because of the amount of inputs. But what he said was that I could teach anyone how to get over this board. What I can't teach someone, and you know this better than anybody, Dinky, is what a snare drum is supposed to sound like.
Exactly.
In context of the song.
Exactly.
What a guitar amp is, and why does it fit in this song and not another one?
Yep.
And I never forgot that ever, because you're not mixing for yourself. You're mixing for the artist.
Exactly.
You're mixing for what they wanted it to be.
Yes.
And I don't mix bands from my ego. you go do your homework and you listen to what a band is supposed to sound like,
Yep.
and you try to replicate it as best as you can in whatever
Exactly.
situation. And that's what's missing. Yeah, because there's a couple people out there that that are on YouTube, and you said, listen what I did, and I know the band, but that mix is not what the band's supposed to sound like.
Nope.
And you go, well, why? Well, because I listened to tracks, and I went in there and I fixed them with plugins, and I fixed them with this. when the band, the last guy that was out with them was an analog engineer, and he used to mixes the Stones.
Yeah.
On a 5K.
Oh my.
Still.
Yeah.
I mean, still.
Yeah. It's because that's the realism. When you listen to when a lot of the older artists start using that digital and stuff, after a while they get crazed out. Dylan just had a big thing when he first came through here to Worcester. He cancelled a couple of nights until they got the sound sorted because it was the same problem. It's the digital sounds messed him up completely, and you've got no feeling, and you've got no guts in that other sound. Dynamics, I should say, not guts, but dynamics. So consequently, you can't play off of those things. Whereas in the 2 days of the channel, the 2 days that you working with some of them bands, you let it rip. You don't have to worry about anything. It feels good. It feels good. It sounds good, and at the end of the day, everybody's happy because the band's happy, you're happy, and that's what counts. I mean, I've got off that channel stage, and we had to pay Suicidal Tendencies one night, right? I go into the bus, and with Tony Raine. Unfortunately, Tony was not with us because he's recovering from serious stroke that he had in September.
Man, I wish him well.
I will let him know that because he comes out of rehab openly next week, and then we're gonna have a couple of months off after we've done a month of production. A couple of months off, and then we'll start again in the fall, and maybe we'll just do more conference calls with him.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
I just got to ask you, you still down in the South Shore?
Yeah, we're in Plymouth. We're in Plymouth in the system now. We're down here in at the local Scene Studios from Plymouth, and I'm in the podcast room. And Chris is on doing engineering for us on this little podcast board, the old Roarer that changed because they bought Mackie. And so they got Mackie parts in the new one. He decided to get the new one. It sounds damn good. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Mackie, did a couple of good things out there.
Well, they got bought by Aurora, and the thing about it is that they made their live podcast thing, makes it really sound good. And the different parts of Mackie's. Mackie's done some wonderful engineering over the years.
They have.
No messing around about it. So this is why I'm doing this, and not only that, we're on my phone talking through the board, and it's just it's crystal clear. And no messing with the sound. So you don't have to go up and down. Chris will sit there and let it do its thing. But if he wanted to, he could press the button, and he could go to the digital side of things and do, graphs and do whatever with EQs and all that. But if you've got it natural, like with these, good old Shure mics and the big ones, with the muffs on them and everything, and straight in the board, it's wonderful. I mean, and that's the key to the whole thing, is to be simple and use your hearing. Hearing is the key to all the stuff.
All of it. What brings to mind one of my almost biggest memories of being at the channel was your birthday, and you let me mix the Motown, like David
Ruffin.
And Eddie Kendrick and Shirley Wells.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. That was on my birthday, August 6th.
Yeah, but it had all the players from Detroit.
Yeah, and you enjoyed that.
I got to mix that because it was your birthday, and one of my favorite gigs that I've ever done because it was.
That's what I'm after. That's the kind of stuff that I want to talk about because.
Yeah, I mean that was just when you grow up back then, and you're still young, you listen to music, you listen to that stuff.
Yes, you do,
and you listen to the players because I spend a lot of time now, Dinky, listening to the Wrecking Crew.
Yeah,
and watching all the documentaries of Muscle Shoals because I've been there.
Yeah,
and and work for bands that are out of Muscle Shoals. And I really, really, out of all those gigs, are my favorite are those. But what's really interesting is this guy T-Bone Burnett.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I worked with him. I worked with him last year and this year, and he's exactly what you're talking about. He is the guy that puts 4 microphones in acoustic because he played with Bob Dylan and everybody else. He might even came back in the day with Elvis Costello back then at the channel. And I did a bunch of shows with him, and that's what he is. He just has some old 1974 Sennheiser microphones, the white ones.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think you had.
Yeah.
And then some of those dynamic condensers to pick up, the rest on stage.
Yeah.
And that's all we had. And and it was, nobody knows the art of because it happened a lot at the channel of mixing, an acoustic guitar in a room and just putting a mic or a DI or both, a condenser, like an 81 if you needed at the time, whatever we had.
Yeah.
And it was as real could come.
Yeah, exactly. Flat as could be, or you didn't need to EQ anything most of the time because of the way that things absorbed on that stage. It was just a stage.
Oh yeah, you didn't have to. But like I said, I still recall fondly, that particular gig because it was just talk about feeling. They have those guys.
Yeah, I like that. It's true. Talk about feeling. It's true.
Yeah. Oh yeah, feelings. Yeah, there was a lot of bands that came through there that that had like Molly Hatchet, back on those biker nights that we had.
Oh yeah.
Well, Danny Joe was a madman, and he was, and I knew him for years up till he passed away, and one hell of a guy. But back then, I'd be sitting on stage doing monitors for him, and Big Al would come up on stage from the Hells Angels, and they'd blow harp together and throw shot glasses at me. But it was the whole vibe of the channel for that to happen.
Yeah,
there was nobody in town anywhere that could cover or want to cover, for that matter, having a band like Molly Hatchet on Halloween. With all those motorcycles out there.
It was fun.
And Boris, whatever his name, from the Monster Mash, played every year.
Oh yeah, that's right, Boris Pickett.
and his kids came up on stage.
That's right.
Yeah. So all those kind of fun things that happened there that you were witnessing like firsthand.
Yeah.
It is the reason why you have such great memories of specifically the channel.
Yeah.
No,
I agree. I agree. That's why I went in there in '84. I couldn't believe all the stuff going on. I says, that's got to be one of the most electric places that it was. I mean, for the rest of the time.
Electric.
I didn't want to go touring after that. I mean, I was so happy watching. Actually, I did go touring a couple of times. I went out with Rick James on my birthday.
I remember that.
I remember that. I went down to New York and played the wonderful Harlem Theater there.
Oh yeah. Back then, when it wasn't such a nice neighborhood.
That's true. I mean, but we played. I did the monitors for him and let the house guy do the thing. When Rick came over to me on the side of the monitors and is like, going like, got you forever now. You're not going to leave me ever. Because I'd give him what the feeling is he wanted. Once he got that feeling, he could project and start creating. And
well, you didn't have to worry about
just the bass. It was his voice. It was this. It was that. And once you had everything around him, and he was stood in the middle of the stage, and everybody else playing around him, he would like illuminate the whole place by just playing a couple of notes here on the bass that would just send people nuts because of the fun.
Well, the people that play the channel were all and were on that stage. We're on the stage because of the history, also, but because it was a great place to play.
Yeah.
The people always did it, but you always remember like John Entwistle being there with the PA system behind him.
It was,
and I mean, how did you get that guy as his bass sound, and the various stars that came on that stage that were big people that came on their own.
Well, I mean, Roy Orbison. All the 50s and 60s act stuff that came through, little, the Killer.
Yep. Oh, many times. Yeah, he came in quite a few times.
Oh yeah, yeah. You had some fun on certain nights, for sure, in that place. But also, did you watch and come to see other acts when they weren't working? You just pop in and see.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was there, with my friend. You knew her, Melinda. Murphy. She. We would always go to the channel to see, like, Face to Face.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. I remember you seeing me there and whatever, and you weren't working on that.
I think the last concert that Face to Face ever played was a channel.
Yep.
And seeing Fahrenheit and seeing John Cafferty and seeing some of the local bands that
Meatloaf
many times. Yep. Yeah.
There's a famous story about that. I think I mentioned before. It was one of the things. He just got on stage, and they were vamping up, and it was getting to start to sing, and he started singing, and then he realized he had to go to the bathroom.
Oh boy!
The next thing you know, he's out the back door with the mic, run right round to the front of the place. He's gone through to the private bathroom in the office, and stuff. And one of the guys from the club went in there right afterwards and took the seat out. And
did they?
The toilet. Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And he took the seat out. Meatloaf was here and stuff. When I started laughing. It was in his garage, unfortunately, when he had the fire, unfortunately, but he had the photograph of it. I says, we got to post it.
Oh.
So I posted this a long time ago, and I started laughing. But also...
Well, there was a lot of bands that you could have.
Yeah,
there was a band on a New Music Night.
Yeah.
And, one of those nights that came in, there were a lot of Berkeley kids.
Yes, there were, definitely, yes.
A lot of Berkeley bands. Well, this one guy came in with a tree painted neon green, and he had a Tascam 4-track on one branch. He had a microphone on another one. He had a DI for like a keyboard. It was horrible, but it was the fact that you ask them when they're loading in, what do you got? I have a tree. I said, you have a what? Yeah, it was called the electric tree. And he tried, and then there were bands that came in from the Berkeley who never played together.
Yeah.
There was a guy that never ever played together. There was a guy who was a songwriter or whatever, kind of Zappa-like. And he would send the music to everybody, but they never rehearsed. But then they came to the channel, and they all came on stage playing 10 different songs at the same time. It was a long 20 minutes, Dinky, but those are the kind of those nights. Those nights were pretty memorable. I can think about.
I'm sure. Definitely fun stuff. I remember seeing so many of the New Music Nights that I said to myself, "Whoa, we've got some good ones here, and then we've got some that I don't think really should be on this stage, but they were learning the experience. They were learning to be on a big, big stage. I mean, Tony was talking about this one group that came from New Hampshire. They dressed up. They got all this stuff. They got made all these flyers. They threw all this stuff into the audience. There was nobody there. There was just, they went through all the motions, but there was nobody there. It was just, the papers were...
Well, you'll remember the Royal Pimps?
Oh, yeah.
Rafi, he would go all over the place and wallpaper all of Alston.
That's right.
And he would do crazy things like jump into the channel. He had to get a tetanus shot.
Yeah.
And he would come in, and, he would get enough people for some nights and then nobody at all. And then there were some nights he would play and you could never get him off the stage.
Yeah.
You had to pull the plug on him. But one of the craziest stories was this band called Sika, which was named after a Swedish porn star. And the drummer was named Sully Erner.
No.
And Sully started Godsmack, which became an enormous band. And I talked to him about it. And I remember they would come to the club with absolutely nobody in there and play their 25-minute set or whatever. And then, probably 6-7 years later, the next thing you know, they have like a #1 album out with a different band.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that too.
Yeah, lots of people were changing at that time. It was creative in a big way for the Boston music scene. I mean, because of all the venues. The venues that were open till 1 o'clock in the morning were fine, but we were open till 2, so people would be coming from the other venues because they knew that 12 o'clock would be the start of the main acts. And they could catch up on the main acts that were through. But people were coming, like you said, from the Boston Garden, from doing shows or seeing shows there and what have you. And at that time was a lot of shows that were going off at the Garden. And and what have you. So they would be following through, like you said, coming through to see who was playing at the end and just meeting chicks at the end and that kind of stuff,
Well, Greg Allman came on a new music night on one night. Greg Allman, I think, came in looking for you.
Oh.
And so he hung out for a while, and he came to me, because I was mixing the bands and all that.
Yeah.
And Greg back in '84 was not really all, he was Greg. But he was like, come with me to the Four Seasons, and you should get on tour with us. And I remember his assistant saying, he says that to everybody. This was back, like I said, 86. But, I always had a thing, Greg Allman was one of my favorite singers.
Yeah.
And, but he came in often, and visited, and that was quite a treat.
Yeah.
It was like seeing a legend. There was a lot of legends that came into the channel to hang out, especially to chat with you.
Well, I mean, once they've been there, they were always wanting to come in there to see what the scene was happening, and we had different genres of scenes going off from, world music to punk to industrial to metal of 3 or 4 different kinds to everything else you could ever imagine that was in there, which was unheard of in a club usually. But were you there for Iggy Pop when he recorded the album when it came out the channel?
I don't know if I worked that night, but I do remember it. Yeah.
Do you remember it?
Yeah, I do remember it. It was one of those nights. I mean, the channel was a place to be and a place to hang out and feel comfortable because you were comfortable there. It's your home.
It was your home, exactly. I threw you to the wolves. Go in there and have some fun. But you're right. I mean, people used to come in looking for me on those music nights, and I didn't. After a while, I was too tired by doing the gear or whatever, and this, that, and the other to keep coming up. So you and people like Doug Winnicky and Timmy Hines, Timmy Miller, and that crowd and stuff. You guys did an amazing job because, like you just talked about, that whole thing of working with artists that coming here from Berkeley that were trying to create this stuff, and they had no idea what they were doing. But at the end of the day, they got through it, and whether it be a new music or whether it be a good night, because some of those bands came through on good nights too, because they would got followings with their tickets that were selling earlier.
Oh yeah, there's a lot that I can speak to that had played there and went on their way to on the way up and on the way down. You saw
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. You got they were on the way up, on the way down, as long as they were playing and making some money and stuff. Yet there's some of the home bands like we always talked about, the Fools and the Stompers, they would be the big money makers for the locals and Rick Berlin and stuff and and they were, and like you said, Face to Face, they were coming there for get their paycheck for a month, by basically just playing one gig that lot, and they could do it, and today it's the same fee as what they were getting in them days.
Oh yeah,
if they can get it, some of them, because it's a whole different world out there. There used to be, say 10,000, now they're down to 5, or whatever,
right.
Or even just show up for a couple hundred, that kind of thing, I
think the hardest decision I had to make was when Foghat asked me to tour, and I had to leave the scene, and you think that you're never going to get back to that place again, that mixing all over town, or you're at the channel.
Exactly.
But I had to, because Foghat and Savoy Brown were the first albums I ever owned, and it was the first band I ever listened to on Don Kirshner's rock concert. And when Roger called me up to ask if I wanted to mix and do all that, I don't know how you can say no to stuff like that. It's just like a hard. Of course, like Jeff Morley and my peers, who I consider my peers, he didn't want to tour because he had kids.
Yeah, exactly.
And, he had stuff to do. Like, he was, because I know now he's actually out doing stuff with Pat Murray, with some of his bands.
Yeah.
Him and Pat, I keep in touch with. I know what they're doing, and so it's good to know that after all these years, and it's like 40 years, to be able to keep up with, it's like Paul Hager, Paul Hager.
He's doing real well with Mary Cyrus. Mary Cyrus.
Paul used to come in with a rack at the channel.
Oh, always.
And he wanted to mix all the new music nights. And I said, go ahead. And if I was at another club and he wanted to mix a couple bands, I said, sure.
Yeah.
And you talk about a guy that's come up the ladder.
Oh, really? He's done really, really well. You have too. I mean, come on. I mean, you come out to that place and you just swing the whole next 30 odd years plus. You've done.
Well, it's given me a career, but like people like Paul and others were, they just have had an amazing, just because they cared so much, and they wanted to learn more than anybody.
Yeah, that's right.
Do.
And they had a place to do it in a bigger place with a channel and stuff there. And that's
there was no better place to learn than the channel and figure out a way to patch, a rack of, analog computer.
Paul's still doing it. He's got racks and racks for Miley.
Oh, he does. He has.
I've seen his.
He has.
Seen a rig.
He always. Yeah.
We have to get him on at some point and chat about some of that stuff, because.
Oh, you should. He loved that place. You should definitely.
He was. Look, all you guys that worked hard and are still working hard. Timmy Miller, you know what Timmy's done over the years? He did not only just New Kids, he did In Sync. He's now working with Will Smith, doing Will Smith.
Is he?
His wife.
Yeah, Tim Miller. He had a rise, especially with with all the stuff that you guys were doing with New Kids.
Oh yeah, we were doing that. But the thing is, I'd got ill and Tim took over, which is good. I had him come out with me within the circle when I took them out in the 80s.
Right.
Not the 80s, I mean the 90s when I took them around after we got Bad Boys a hit, and then Sweat along in Germany. I took him all over the place. We were in Australia, went to Japan. We went to all through Germany and stuff. They loved us in Europe, within a circle.
Oh yeah,
and it's fun. It was just fun all the way around and creative. We still were being creative later on. We could fly with their gear as excess baggage.
Oh yeah.
No more excess baggage they get you.
No. I was with Steve Vai a couple years ago. I was going because he played the channel too, and I went out with him and I played all of the Pacific Rim with him, starting in New Zealand, and going to Japan.
Anyway,
New Zealand all the way to Japan.
All the way.
But all the way.
Anyway, we're going to have to, time is just about up with us.
Okay, well, you could probably talk forever, but I really appreciate you reaching out.
Oh, we're going to talk again, Scott, because it's not just going to be me here. I'm going to have a couple of the people that would come in and talk, and we'll put all the production stuff together. Like I said, I'm going to get Jeff next week. I'm going to get Mario Caputo for doing lights.
Oh, yeah.
We lost DB, we lost DB.
I know, it broke my heart. I talked to his sister. Yeah. I didn't know. I know. How long, I got to ask you, just because I didn't know, how long ago did Timmy pass away?
Timmy Hines? It was got to be quite a few years. I'm not sure. Nancy's trying to look it up in the
I just couldn't. I always.
It's quite a few years, though. I mean, he went early. He
went real early, right?
Real early. I mean, I fought off 4 cancers.
I know.
I fought off this, but now I'm on dialysis every day except today. And
are you?
Oh yeah. I've got a nurse, my wife, at my house. I'm on a dialysis machine at the house. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then I just have the Wednesday off to get myself and Nancy together, and then.
Are you feeling all right? Are you?
I'm feeling a lot better than I've been, but our illness creeps up, and then. But the thing is that you have the beauty of after the illness you got into with your doggies, and then you got into your grandchildren, children.
Oh yeah, I had a crazy couple of months of my body just
crapped out.
Doing things that my body. I had a bypass, during after COVID.
Yeah, that COVID
4-way bypass. Yeah.
Oh, 4-way one. Oh my.
Yeah, and then I had a stent, and then I had some crazy lung thing, and I was in the hospital. And but I got 4 kids in my house now, and I got 3 dogs, and I'm sure you see pictures of them all there.
Oh yeah.
I live out in the country, so it's peaceful. But I am flying out. My mom's still around.
Oh, so that's sick. Good.
Yeah, she's out in Ashland, but I'm gonna fly up. I hope some point I can reach out, maybe catch up with you at some point, because I always want to. Or so I'm gonna fly up to Boston, and I don't know when.
That's good.
I gotta go see her.
And that's the good thing. You better. I had to do that.
Yeah.
My mother got sick, flew out after doing a session, and I was glad to be there before passing and stuff. So that's a big thing.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Nancy just said it's 2014 that Timmy Hines passed away. I know it's quite a while ago now.
It was,
and, and he was a good lad too. I mean, not only that, a good engineer. And,
it was great.
And fun to be around. Every time you always have fun with him, so he was creative.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I just was.
Go on.
Yeah. Oh no, I was just when DB passed. I reached out to his sister.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know. I was just curious, and I wanted to see how I could, help or whatever. Because DB is loved by a lot of people.
Yeah. DB was if I first met him when I started doing Giles, he was Giles' engineer.
Like
Giles,
right.
And that kind of stuff. But we've had some real interesting times together, DB and myself, with Giles and with the channel and what have you. But good times and tough times too as things went along. You know, you had up and down like a yo-yo, but not too crazy. All right. On that note, you and I will have to call it on this one, and then what we will do is we will once I've got through all this, we'll be doing more production stuff, and then I'm going to be asking you to say a few more stories and stuff because you've got stories. I'm going to get Paul on and get him to see if he can put together.
I'll hit him up, and I'll have him. I'll hit him up,
and then do it. All right. I want to thank you again, there, Scott Pearlman, and 2 Pints in a Corner, and we will be signing out.
Thanks, Dinky.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you a lot. You did it. You've always done a wonderful job, and you continue every day. So that's the most important.